Welcome to First Class Counselors, where we give camp counselors insider tips and advice on how to make a camper's summer the best it can be.
Whether you are brand new to the camp world or you have a few years under your belt, self-improvement and a growth mindset is built into the DNA of every great camp staff member, or dare we say it, every first-class counselor.
My name is Oliver Gregan, pronouns he, him. I'm the executive director at Camp Winona YMCA in Leon Springs, Florida.
And my name is Matt Wilford. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the director of overnight programs at Campfire Circle. We're an organization that brings the camp experience to kids and families affected by pediatric cancer. And what are we talking about today? Well, let me set the stage for you here. It is arguably the most stressful time in a camp counselor's life. It's the first day of camp. The caregivers have just left, and now it's just you and the campers. And as 10 sets of eyes stare at you in anticipation, it dawns on you that what you do and what you say next really matters. So, how do you spend that first little bit with your campers? And how you do it will set the tone for the rest of the session. If you don't treat it intentionally, it's going to be something that you and likely the rest of camp is going to regret and have to work on for the rest of the session. So in this episode, we're going to talk about why is it important to be intentional, what to do in the first 5 minutes when you're alone with those kiddos, the things that you can do after that until you're ready for your next thing, and we'll also share some of our horror stories of what doesn't work in this time. And that sounds pretty intense, right? So it's so intense that Oliver and I, we cannot take this one on alone.
That's right. To tackle this huge topic properly, we've brought in somebody whose camp does this expertly. So, Robynne, welcome to First Class Counselors.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, what you do, and why we have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me here. My name is Robynne. I use she, her pronouns. I am the camp director at the Cairn Family of Camps, which is an overnight summer camp program in Baysville, Ontario. I've been the camp director there for 6 years now and was a seasonal staff member for 5 years before that. So yeah, that's my camp story.
So when we do have a guest, we have a little way to get to know you a little bit better. And it's just a lightning fast question round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, cool. So to start off, what's your favorite camp meal?
I would say it has to be Greek meal, which is like spiced Greek chicken with pita and feta and tzatziki sauce. Brilliant.
Sounds delicious. Definitely sounds like a camp meal I might need to try myself one day. All right, summertime camp footwear preference. Are you a Chacos? Are you Tevas? Closed-toed shoes?
Definitely Chacos.
Ooh, do you work on that Chaco tan?
No. Only the Chaco dirt tan.
All right, you're building a fire. What shape are you building your fire in? Are you doing a log cabin, triangle, TP? What do you got?
Log cabin all the way.
All right. And then finally, a camp game that you would smoke a camper in, but you usually let them win.
What a great question. My camp game specialty is running up hills and down hills through the forest very fast. And so any sort of like camper catch counselor sort of game running through the forest, that's my escape method. And then just when the camper's getting tired, yeah, I'll let them catch me.
All right. When the camper's getting tired.
That's what I said, yeah.
All right. Well, it is great to get to know you. So let's move into this first topic we have covering our subject today. Why is it important to be intentional with these first 5 minutes? I mean, how important could 5 minutes be? We've only, heard the expression, first impressions are everything. So let's get started. Parents are gone. It's just us and the campers. Matt, do you want to kind of kick us off here for what's this important thing about intentionality?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of frame this. Every camp is going to do this a little bit differently. It might not be the first thing your camp does, but there will be a time when it's just you and the kids. And also for our listeners, you might be an experienced camp person, or this might be your first summer camp experience at all. You might have never been to camp. But if you're a kid, like if I take myself back to 10-year-old Matt, my first year at camp, and it was like my parents were gone, That is incredibly nerve-wracking. And so I think it's important that we remember that those kids are in a very unsure situation. And it's important that we are self-assured and intentional in those moments. If the kids get the perception that we have our crap together and we at least, even if you're freaking out on the inside, what you have on the outside is really important because it is comforting to those kids who might be uncomfortable, right? And especially the quieter ones, especially the new ones are going to need that comfort. And as we establish the norms within our community, we everything we do in this time really tells that story, that first impression. It does matter. So are we a kind community? Are we goofy? Is it fine to be yourself? Is it rigid? Is it flexible? Do we have an autocratic style of leadership? Is it democratic? Are we inclusive? All of those questions are things that you are going to start establishing in this first little bit. You're creating this community. It's this little intentional community, and we want to make sure that we're starting it off on the right foot. We're going to go in depth about all of these things, autocratic, democratic. We might touch on those, and we could have a big discussion on it. But I just think it's important that we frame this from we're really setting the tone with this first little bit, and how we're making our campers feel in an uncertain situation is something that we have to take extremely seriously.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of that first impression of the rules of the road, right? Like, what is the basic conduct in this little society that I'm now a part of going to be? Robyn, what about you? What is your belief in this importance about it being intentional with your first 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think exactly like Matt said, those kids are looking for comfort. They're looking for affirmation. They're looking for some sort of direction as to what's going on and what they've just entered into, especially if it's their first time at camp or if they're in a new group of kids, which happens every year. So I think it's important to be intentional because as the counselor, you have that control and influence, whether you have a plan or not. The kids are going to be looking to you for direction, for guidance, for all of those things that Matt was talking about, what the cultural norms are. And so because you have that control and influence just by being the counselor and being that person for them, then regardless of if you have a plan or not, they're still going to be looking to you. So since you're the leader that they're watching for direction, being intentional with that can help provide that comfort and that assurance, and really being intentional makes the best use of that intention. Otherwise, they're going to look elsewhere for that direction, right? Because they're looking to answer those questions. And if they don't find them in you, then they're going to be looking around and they might find them in their peers or in something else. And you don't,
Yep.
you want to have that control. You want to be able to set that tone off right from the beginning.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to be that mama duck, right? Just naturally, like they don't know who to follow, so they're going to pick you. And I love how you kind of phrase that, where y- there's just that expectation off the bat that if it's the first impression they come after you for, it's going to be you to follow, or they're going to have to try and go somewhere else, right? And I think for me, at the end of the day, that intentionality, right, it comes from the fact that you got prepared for them. Like, you're showing you're prepared for them, that you're ready in that first 5 minutes, and you give them that impression. You might not know what's happening after that 5 minutes, right? That may be a mystery to you, but that first 5 minutes that you're with them, if you can show that like you've prepared for them, it shows that for you personally, you've had to take that time to, like athletes say, visualize the win, right? Think about what that process is going to be like, what your
Mhm.
kids are going to be like, how they might react to different things. Do you have something ready for them? So, like, you're the person who can provide for them right off the bat, whatever that thing might be. We'll have that conversation in a bit. But that idea of being intentional with it, it allows your campers to know, oh, this person is going to be the one who's there for me. They're mama duck that I get to follow. They're the lead lemming, whatever it might be. My intentionality is there to show, hey, look, I'm here for you. Matt, do you have anything you want to mention right before we move to the next subject?
Yeah, I think it's important that when we're framing this, like we're using things like mama duck or like be the leader or kids are going to look to you. That doesn't mean that you need to be like you need to be like the taskmaster or the drill sergeant in that way, right? You can do all of these things in a kind way, and I think definitely my default sometimes was to go in that, like, I'm the leader, I'm going to establish like dominance in a weird sense. I talked about this in our mistakes we made episode, that I just tried to do that way too harshly, and it just set a weird tone. Did the kids listen? Yeah, they did, but it set a very strange tone that I had to, like, to show that I was actually like a kind, empathetic leader. I had to like backtrack a little bit from that, and it was messy, and I'm sure that it made those quiet kids feel really unsafe almost, because I was really really strong in that sense. So with great power comes great responsibility, I guess, as Spider-Man, as Uncle Ben would tell us. So something to be aware of before we keep talking about you as the leader, just framing that you're not the drill sergeant, but you are a leader, and there you have that influence, whether or not you like it, as Robyn said.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The leader that you are at camp is not going to be the leader you're going to be maybe in other areas. Like, I'm not expecting anyone to be a drill sergeant at camp. That's I think what is going to be really important for you, our listeners, as leaders, to kind of learn as you go through. Your type of leadership style is going to be dependent on the fact that you're at camp and what camp you're at and what the expectation of counselors are. So, all right, this is the take home material for you all. We're in that first 5 minutes. There are 10 eyes on you, like Matt said, or 10 sets of eyes on you, hopefully. And they want to know what they're going to be doing, right? Welcome to summer camp. It's here. Robyn, put the eyes on you as the guest. Matt and I are your campers right now. What are you doing with us for those 5 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like we were saying, this first 5 minutes it's the first time that you are the one to step into that role of the cabin leader, the counselor, and your goals for this first 5 minutes are to do something together, to do something interactive, and to build engagement. And I think that that's most important, because then that's what really draws them in. And so what are some of the ways to do that? Some of my top tips would be to play what I call de-inhibitizers and name games. So de-inhibitizers are types of games that are silly, they're fast, they're easy to learn, quick buy-in. It doesn't take a lot of skill. It breaks the ice is the main purpose there. So it's demonstrating through those first 5 minutes that, hey, we're going to have fun here. We get to play here. Camp is a fun environment. Those are all what de-inhibitizers try to do. So these could be tag games, or other, again, easy buy-in games that get kids moving around, maybe talking to each other a little bit, having a little bit of easy competition, but the main purpose is just to play together. And then name games kind of being a second category of de-inhibitizers. Name games are games that are intentionally designed to make sure that kids are using each other's names and that you are also learning names. It helps you put names to faces for these kids that you are meeting for the first time. And we all know how important using people's names is at camp and everywhere in the world, right? It makes people feel seen and heard and valued for the individual that they are. So it's important to practice that. And so practicing that for yourself and making sure that in those first 5 minutes, you can say, okay, Matt's the one that likes bananas because I learned that in the past game, Matt, and saying Oliver as many times as you can. And then also getting kids to say each other's names, because that's not a skill that they practice a lot in other parts of their life. And so we can model that at summer camp by starting to play some of these name games.
Yeah, and I think those dehibitizers, right? Those icebreakers games that I know Matt and I have brought up in the past, they're so important. But I really would advise people get to a point of comfort with them, right? A point to where you can, the operation of the game, you can run the game, run it with your fellow counselors, like during staff training. So when the kids arrive, you're not trying to remember what the game is. You practiced that. And now when you're running the game with the kids, all right, I know the rules, I know the regulations, I know what we're doing here. I've explained it at least once or twice before. Now I can do a lot with what Ron was just talking about is as kids say things, my focus isn't how I'm running the game so much as I'm trying to remember what the kids are saying. And that when you get to that level of, all right, I can remember everyone, like they said their name, they said something fun about them, da 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 da. I can remember those things as we're going through. I'm not trying to think about, okay, what's next? Well, this is what the draft form is like in the game, or this is what an elephant sounds like. I can just focus on, okay, Robyn really likes elephants. She thought when I made that noise, it was really funny. I saw her laughing. I'll hold that in my bank one day. And if she's upset, maybe I'll be like, hey, Robyn, do you remember that elephant from the first day of camp? And like, what are you talking about? Elephant. I was like, the one I made. It gets her to maybe laugh
Mm.
again later on the road, but it puts something in your bank. So learn the games before you really go into it. Thanks so much,
Mhm.
Robyn. Those were great. Matt, eyes are on you now. You're
Uh-oh.
you're the counselor, and Rob and I get to be campers right now. Give us your first 5 minutes.
Okay. The philosophy that I take with these first 5 minutes is that I think engagement is something that I definitely think about. What is the impression that each kid is going to be taking away from this time together? And I think about every camper, the ones that have been to camp before, and especially the ones that haven't been to camp before. So when I'm selecting my games, I do kind of two things. One, I think about keeping it low stakes so that a camper doesn't have to overly perform, but it gives everyone a place within the game. And I know that seems kind of metaphorical. I'll give you my second one, then I'll give you an example that ties all this together. So low stakes, camper doesn't have to perform, but it gives everyone a role and a place, so that it's not just the kids who are extrovert and experienced from camp, a chance to do things or to use their voice, and being careful in the games and activities that I choose, that they prevent early cliques and existing friendships from taking priority. So I'm not doing games where I'm separating them into like small groups. And if I am choosing those groups in a fun way. I'm not doing it to make the kids who are experienced feel bad about being experienced, but I'm choosing those groups very intentionally. And you should make sure you ask your camp. A lot of camps do like good to knows or give you like the heads up on a camper history. Making sure that you know that going into these is really important, so you know what kind of games. But one of my go-tos that is a little performy, but it is very low stakes, is called Ripple, and I think I've talked about it on First Class Counselors before. Essentially, you're standing in a circle, and everyone gets a chance to say their name, and the only thing you need to do at a minimum is say your name, or you can say your name and do an action associated with it. So I could say Matt, or I could like slam the ground like a doormat and say Matt. And then around in the circle, everybody says my name and does the same action. And that's as simple as it is. It goes Matt, 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 with everyone doing the same action. And that's it. The next person who goes, they say their name and they do their action. They don't have to go back and say my name or remember anything like that. There are games where you can do that kind of progression, but again, this is low stakes. So and then everybody is saying that person's name and getting the pronunciation right. You as the leader have a really good opportunity here that if someone has a tough name to pronounce, you stop and you make sure it's pronounced correctly, that people are doing that and honoring that person's name. What Robyn said about names is 100% right. But then you have, if there's 10 campers, you have at least 10 times where you're hearing that person's name and doing a fun action if they want to do it. So Ripple is one of my absolute go-tos for this first 5 minutes, because you get a little action, you get names in there, and it's a good start.
That's awesome. I like how you opened up with talking about preventing those early clicks and the existing friendships, right? Like making sure that, those campers who are returning aren't just going to run right back to their old friend. They will. They want to see their old friend. That's
Yeah,
totally all right. But now
yeah.
you have kind of control in the game. You can give that opportunity for them to meet new people in the cabin and really enforce that, like, hey, remember last year when you made that friend? Well, hey, guess what? You have to make this friend this year.
Mhm.
And I think that's super important. And going into like kind of some of my talking points is I do want to think about that returning camper, right? Like a lot of our conversation today is about trying to get those like first time campers, welcomed into camp. But you got to understand, probably about 5 kids in your cabin, typically or more, might be returning kids who've been to
Mhm.
camp before.
Mhm.
They want to see old friends. They want to do the old fashioned camp things. They're off to the races, ready to go for what they remember from last year because they have all these highlights. And you need to find kind of a way to reel them in. And these icebreakers are a great way to be able to do that. Show them like, oh yeah, like we're gonna play the game that you loved last year, or we're gonna play a new one that you can be excited about. But getting them on pace, but also recognizing them, right? Like making sure like when they come up, you can be like, "Hi, it's so nice to see you again, Robyn. Like it, how did you have a great year?" Being able to say their name or something like that.
Mhm.
Maybe you didn't
Yeah.
have them in your cabin last year, or maybe you don't have an idea, but maybe you know they're a returning camper, and that's all you need to know off the bat. It's just, hey, it's so nice to see you back at camp this year. I can't wait to be your counselor, and all this kind of stuff. Because sometimes those kids are really vocal, and they might be like, Robyn, my counselor last year was Matt, and Matt was the best. That was the best counselor ever, and I don't want another counselor. So really, this is not going to work between us. So I'm going to go and ask for her, right? Like, I think we've all had those campers before, and you're just like, okay, okay, okay. Well, let's have the first day together, and we'll go from there. So just note that those returning campers are going to be a little bit different. You got to be ready for them, their excitement, and that huge level of momentum they're going to come in with, because they've been in the car for an hour, 2 hours, excited to get to camp. It's going to explode as soon as they see their favorite friends and counselors from last year. So, my big advice though, when you're leading these games, doing these icebreakers, try not to be the main speaker, be the main listener, right? So ask the questions, let them respond. The biggest game that I love is Wind in the Willows. You make a circle, someone stands in the middle, they say something about themselves. If they share that category with somebody else, those people will cross the circle and try and find another spot to stand in the circle, and that person will find another spot. There will be one person remaining. They get to introduce a new point. Simple things like, I like pizza, I play soccer, I like Slinkies, whatever it might be, gives them a reason to move, and then they get moving, and they can maybe see someone they have something similar with as they move across. And then to mark their spots in the circle, depending on where you're standing, you can use different items like their shoes or their backpack or something like that. Something that they probably won't trip over, but can still be there. And then one thing that I do like to do with my campers in the first 5 minutes is have them make decisions as a group. Very simple decisions. Hey, do you guys want to do our activity over here in the shade? All right, cool. Let's go over there. But ask them the questions so they have to make the decisions. Or do you guys want to go this direction for the tour towards the waterfront, or do you want to go towards the dining hall first? These are easy things that you can adapt in how you're spending those first 5 minutes with them or that first hour with them, but it allows them to make their choice, right? It allows them to come together as a unit, know that they have a voice within the cabin, and that they can make those simpler, easy decisions that you can adapt to and work with them on. And it also shows that you're willing to listen, you're willing to work with them, and that the cabin is a unit that comes together. So those are some of the things that I really like to do in the first 5 minutes. But now 5 minutes is over. You're in camp. We're in the post 5 minutes. You started to introduce, you got to know their names. Now you have to kind of start setting the precedent for what your cabin culture is going to be, right? They saw little drops. Now you got to give them a glass of water. So let's see, we started with Robyn last time. Matt, I'm going to put you under the bus and take over. What are you doing with those post 5 minutes?
I appreciate you giving me the mic, Oliver. Robyn's one here is going to be the main one. I'm just going to slip in a quick point and then let Robyn take over, because Robyn has the ultimate tip and trick that the three of us agreed needs to be said. But I think, Oliver, you said time when you aren't the leader. That's kind of what I was going to say here too. Like give the leadership up a little bit. Give kids like some time too. And maybe this, I think I would suggest go for what Robyn's going to tell you, and then give them some time to like unpack and set up. Go over the camp schedule for the week. Let them ask questions. Give experienced campers like a platform. Maybe you have thought about your bunks, and you have like if your bunks are like this, you have an experienced kid next to a new camper. As much as you can try to facilitate that, that's kind of a cool idea, that they can ask questions to each other about the camp schedule or what's going on. You could do like a get to know you bingo sheet where the kids, as you're unpacking, go around and ask them these questions and see how many you can get checked off the list. Just time where they can kind of do their thing. And it's also a good experience after these 5 minutes to give the experienced campers some kind of a platform, making sure that they're sharing positive things, and not just like the way we did it last year and how it has to be, and those kinds of things. But there's ways that you can kind of give them the stage intentionally. And I think answering campers' questions that they have is a kind of a cool way to do it as well. That's all I got for this.
I love it, and it's going back to that. They're starting to become decision makers, right? And we're allowing them to become their own little leaders within the cabin, within that framing. I'll quickly get mine out of the way because I'm going to let Robyn just kind of drop the mic when she's done, and we'll go from But this is definitely something I've talked about on the show before. They're called Maslow sheets. They're essentially the questions of essentials, right? Do you have your toothbrush? Do you have your bedding? Do you have all those things? That's handled in the first 5 minutes, right? Um, but there are parts of that Maslow sheet that are designed that they go past that 5 minutes. So what is something you learned about your camper within, that first hour, that first day, so that when you're done with your Maslow sheet and you go and hand it to your leadership staff member, right, you get to say, oh, I learned that they are scared of the dark, so we're going to have a small nightlight for them. Or I learned that they don't really like the toothpaste their mom or dad gave them. So they might want to try a different one while they're here at camp, whatever it might be, right? You get to learn something. It's that little word vomit that maybe a camper says in that first little bit that they're at camp.
Mhm.
And that allows you to do something for your camper or think about your camper in a way. And it shows that you're learning about them. But also, and this is the most important part of the Maslow sheet, it's really your first kind of promise to your campers, right? We found out earlier that maybe they came to camp and they totally forgot a pillow, right? Now it's your job to say, hey, I'm going to get you that pillow. We're going to find a way to make sure you have things you need while you're here at camp. So you go, you give that sheet to your coordinator, you make sure that they get you that pillow, that leadership staff members, because you're going to still be watching your kids and being a counselor. They come back, they give you the pillow, you give that to your camper, right? You show them that you can be the provider, the caregiver while they're here at camp. You fulfill those first promises of the basic needs that your camper needs. You're there for them and you're showing that support, because that kid is going to be appreciative of that pillow, of that missing toothbrush, of that extra sheet that maybe they forgot like a fitted sheet or something, right? Those little things that your camper might not end up having, you can provide. And therefore when they look at you, they go, oh, this person's actually here for me. They're willing to get me the things I need in order for me to be comfortable and happy here at camp. And there's the difference between this and maybe saying like, hey guys, make sure you're filling up your water bottles today, is the sometimes filling up your water bottle feels like a chore, right? This is you providing a need for them, and that is really instrumental in the first like hour of them being at camp, or first evening of them being at camp, is for you to show, hey, look, I care about you and the way that you're going to be comfortable here. Like, not everybody else came with a pillow, you didn't. I was able to find you the one that you need so you can be just as comfortable as everybody else, and that's really important to us, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's really important. And the last thing is just making sure that you're doing some fun stuff with them. Maybe start a challenge for them that might go for the whole week, right? Like, who can stack these blocks the highest? Who can throw this frisbee to hit this tree? Um, I like something that's usually like challenging, like, and when they finally get it, maybe on like day 3 or 4, everyone just goes crazy. It's like, John actually did it. John hit the tree with the frisbee from 50 yards away or whatever, and it's just a celebration of the cabin. So I think those are great things to have that your cabin will bond over and hold strong to for the whole week, and that they can see that they can work together on it maybe. So those are some of my favorites. All right, I'm talking too much. It's time for a mic drop. Robynne, the expectations are high. Show us what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that yeah, at the beginning, Matt and Oliver and I all knew that this was one of the things that we all do because it's so important. So while I'm saying it, this is definitely a collective of ideas and something that we all value highly. And that is to create a cabin contract or a set of cabin agreements with your campers together. In the first hour that you are spending with your kids, just you as the counselor and them as the campers, this, like Matt said off the beginning, the intentionality, this is your opportunity to set the expectation of this is what we're going to, this is what camp is going to be like, right? This is what we're going to do together. This is how we're going to live together. This is how we're going to treat one another. And it's important to say that explicitly so that there's no guessing. It's this is a set of contracts and a set of commitments that we are all articulating and making together. I like to have a piece of poster paper, something that we write them out on and have it in the cabin so that we can refer to it. It is like a contract or a commitment. And just like we've been saying, also giving kids the chance to be able to contribute what they want as well, leading from the middle and being able to have this be a collective assignment as a cabin group. So the way that I like to do this is, again, we kind of sit down and say, great, we've had some fun and we are going to be spending all week together and we want it to be the best week that we can make it. And one of the ways that we can do that is make sure that we have a set of commitments that we make to each other about how we treat one another. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the circle and each contribute a role or an idea of how we can make a commitment to one another to treat each other well and to make sure that we have the best week of camp that we can. And always give them permission to pass as well, because that's an important part of especially that first day when they're not fully certain. So I would recommend going around the circle at least twice, so that if a kid passes the first time, then they have the opportunity to say a rule the next time. And it's just going around and being able to establish commitments. And so some of the big ones that you as a counselor would want to make sure that you say are things like, you know, whatever your camp rules or values are, those are important to make sure that they're on there somewhere. So, you know, we're being kind to one another. And at Cairn, we have the 4 S's. So we're practicing safety, stewardship, servanthood, and self-esteem in everything we do, those sorts of things. Then kids can also say things like, you know, our bunks are our own spaces and you can't go on someone else's bunk unless they give you permission or something like that, right? So it gives them the opportunity to share that. I think it's also important when we talk about the cabin rules to coach a little bit, you know, because kids sometimes get silly about it, or you know, there's always the opportunity for some silliness, and that's okay. But asking prompting questions. So if it seems like there's some silence or there's, you know, one of the ones that seems to be really common at our camp is that if you fart, then you have to do something, right? The kids think farts are funny, and so it often makes it into the cabin contract. So that's great. Yes, you can have a rule about farting in there, but what else, right? So maybe after you go around the circle the first time, and there's kind of more silly rules, then reframe the question and say, okay, what happens, how do we want to have our space here in the cabin? What are some things that we think are important to talk about within our space? How do we make decisions together as a cabin? And ask some of those prompting questions to kind of get the level of commitment that you're looking for. I also recommend that it's important that you talk about what happens if we break these rules, because we're creating a set of rules. Okay, so what does that look like if we break the rules? And it will happen, right? So if you talk about it together as a cabin, then you're able to establish that together as a group as well. And kids are able to kind of put in their 2 cents about what that could be, or, you know, we talked about the authoritarian or democratic systems or those sorts of things earlier on, but yeah, is it that the kid is going to get in trouble in some capacity? Likely not, right? What I would say when talking about this is something along the lines of, like, sometimes if we're frustrated or tired or sad or excited, we might break some of these rules, and that's going to happen at some points through the week, but that's okay, because we're still learning about how to live in community with one another. And we've said in some of our previous rules that, you know, we want to treat each other with kindness, and part of that is assuming the best intentions in everyone. So if one of these rules is broken, then we are going to have a problem solving meeting with anyone who's involved in that. And if someone breaks a cabin rule, then you know, what do you think should be involved in that problem solving meeting? Okay, we're probably asking them what happened. Okay, what happened from the other person's perspective? Okay, so, and then maybe have some sort of solution that we come to together as to what we're going to do going forward. And so having that happen there, it sets the kids up for success, because they know these are the expectations. This is what happens if we don't follow the expectations. And then it gives you as the counselor the opportunity to also set yourself up for success, so that when these conflicts inevitably come up later in the week, you're like, all right, I've already got my script. Perfect. We talked about this. The kids know what's happening. And then you can go through and say, hey, we're going to have a problem solving meeting because we broke one of the rules of our cabin contract. Let's solve this problem together. And it gives that often avenue to access conflict management and to hold those accountability pieces, those standards throughout the course of the rest of your week.
And I mean, what a great opportunity for kids to take ownership of their experience at camp. And I think you might have said this kind of offhand, but I think a pretty common practice for me is the kids sign it, and I sign it too. It's not a legally binding document, but they don't know that. And then, like, their signatures are up on the wall with this contract that is their own. It doesn't have to look any specific way, but that act of, like, I'm committing to this kind of thing, and it's a great lesson in consent. And you know, as you're building it, you're saying, like, is this something that everyone that you feel comfortable agreeing to, and you can teach them like the green light, yellow light, red light system of like, I fully green light, I fully agree to this, yellow light, I have some questions, or I'm okay with it but I'm not kind of sure of it, and red light is no, I don't want this on our cabin contract because that's not, I don't agree to this. And it might spark a really good discussion about why some people, there could be some cultural differences that you parse out from this. But I think in terms of the ownership and the consent building, I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can do with it with a group of kids, and especially right off the start.
Yeah, Robyn, do you want to drop your mic?
Mic drop.
There you go. Yeah, no, I think cabin contracts, it's such an important thing to do on that first day. And even as Robyn was talking, I was thinking, all right, here are the other things that I would add contracts, because we could do a whole episode about it, Matt. Like maybe we do it later, but
Yeah.
I really like to make sure that my campers walk away with a way to evaluate if they're following the contract, so we can come back and check on it, right? So like much like we do like a cabin cleaning chart or chore chart, we have like evaluation. Like, how do we know that we're actually being kind and respectful to each other? So it's teaching them how to set a goal of what that looks like. So, you know, if my campers are giving me really simple answers of, we're going to be kind to each other, I'm like, okay, cool. What does kind look like to us? What are the actual actions and words that we use? And then how do we make sure that we're doing them, right? It's the classic kindergarten sticker chart that, you know, teachers do, so that campers can actually look up and see like, oh, I am following something. It may not be your method, but something along the way, so campers can recognize their progress of following their contract. And then the other thing is, I think, Robyn, you talked about, you know, what do you do when a camper does break the contract, right? Those things are going to happen. I always like to mention to my kids, hey, there are natural repercussions, right? When somebody does something that breaks these rules, there's things that we're gonna have to suffer from. Like, even if we have the rule of don't walk into the cabin with your shoes on, right? The natural repercussion is, well, now we got to clean up our mess, right? We knew that this was going to happen, so let's get to it. Let's clean up what we kind of messed up. And then the last thing, and one of my favorite things to do with my campers, and I've definitely mentioned on the show before, is quick contracts. You have this big thing that you put up on the wall and you say, hey, these are the things that we're going to follow together. But what's our contract for how we're going to hold ourselves, and how do we say that, do that, and understand it all the time on camp? So like, I still remember my quick contract from elementary school, which is we would hold up our hands and we would go, today I promise to be prepared, safe, responsible, respectful, and kind. Yeah, it's the easiest thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
There is an amazing TED Talk with a woman who is a teacher, and she has her kids say an amazing speech, which I will not riff off right now because I've definitely put it in show notes before. This is definitely advice I've given, but have your kids not only put this contract up on the wall, but have them come up with that quick contract, so that you can say, roll call your kids and say, hey, you guys, what do we promise today? Promise to be today. They put their hands up in the air and they can say a quick contract, or maybe they put their like fist on their chest or something like that, and they're like, today I promise to be a strong person, a helpful person, a good person, a wholesome person, right? Whatever it might be, but make it quick, to the point, and that your campers say every morning, every day, whatever it might be, and it reminds them of that contract that you guys put up on the wall. So that contract isn't just in the cabin, it's wherever your kids go in the world. So they can take it home, take it around camp, and all those good things too. And that's contracts, Robyn, but I know you got more in that bucket. So please, please, please keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if we're talking about kind of that first time that you're with your cabin, Matt kind of alluded to this, but depending on how your camp is structured, sometimes that happens right away. You know, the caregivers drop their kids off and then it's you. Other times it may not be till that evening when you're going to bed. So there may be, you know, a short period of time or a long period of time. At Cairn, where I'm the camp director, we have a full hour after dinner that is the time for the cabin to just spend time getting to know one another and do these sorts of things. And so the cabin contract, while it's really important and is something that everyone does every week, there's more time than that, you know? So that might be a 10, 15, 20, depending on how long your kids are chatting for. but then there's still more time before they're going to their next activity. So I have a couple of suggestions for kind of how to make use of that time. I think some of the most important things to do during that first hour that you're with your kids are build relationships with campers, build rapport as a counselor with your campers, and provide information so that they build their comfort and security as to what's going on. So one of the things that I think helps achieve this is creating something together. And so I would recommend having a project or something that you can collaborate on creating together as a cabin group that maybe that you're going to use later on. Oliver, I loved your idea of those like quick challenges of like, all right, and just so you know, if anyone can get this done by the end of the week, kudos to you. I'll give you a solid crisp high five. But other things that kind of like that, or an activity, I think that especially after talking and maybe having like a sit in a circle sort of time that you've had with while you're creating your cabin contract, it's important to have a movement break, to think about, again, Matt was saying those other types of kids, right? Some kids could sit in a circle for a really long time and other kids are just getting squirrely and need to move. So I would recommend collaborating on creating something that you're going to use or refer to throughout the week. Or if you have a cabin theme or something like that you're going to be exploring, then setting the stage for that. So whether that's you're creating a cabin name or a cabin origin story or a flag or a banner or something like that, where all the kids and the counselors, you could all work on this together. And then this is going to be your flag that you carry around. And each place that you go to, you add a piece to your flag over the course of the week. Or building a fort in an area close to the cabin. And this is going to be your cabin headquarters. And this is where you're going to receive your information about your tasks for each of the day. But we can't have that in the cabin because we all know that there's some suspicious bugging that could potentially be here in the cabin. So it needs to be a more secret, top secret headquarters. So, if it goes along with whatever your theme is or your activity, but it gets kids doing something and doing something together. And we talked about that with some of our games as well. But if they're building something or creating something, that has a purpose, and it just builds those relationships with one another through doing as opposed to just talking. It gives a new avenue for that relationship building and for you to have those little one-on-one side moments with your kids. So if you're building a fort outside your cabin that's going to be your headquarters, then you can lean over to the kid that's kind of standing off to the back and be like, how can we make this comfier? I feel like we need some comfort here. Oh, okay. And it brings the kid in, or complimenting someone's idea, or yes-anding, giving a compliment and building on someone else's idea and facilitating those conversations. So I would recommend doing something that is more active, potentially even outside of your cabin space during that first time as well. And my key tip is plan a bathroom break before you go to the next activity. This seems like a little one, but kids are going to need to go to the bathroom at some point. And so if you can use that as an opportunity to make sure that it's not right before the next activity is going to be happening, and then you're going to be late for the next activity. Or you can also use it as a bit of a segue or a transition. So kids sometimes need to go to the bathroom because they're uncomfortable or they're bored or they're tuning out of the activity. So if they come to you and say, can I go to the bathroom? And it's still in the middle of the activity, you could say, yes, actually, we were just about to go to the bathrooms all together so we can show everyone where the bathrooms are. So we're just going to finish this up and then we're all going to go to the bathrooms together. So then instead of one kid kind of sidling away to the bathroom to get out of their uncomfortable situation, then it's something that you're turning to be intentional and do it all together. And then as you go to the bathroom, then you can do a mini site tour. Say, hey, this is, again, at Cairn, our cabins are away from the bathrooms that most kids use. So you can say, okay, this is the most direct way to get from our cabin to the bathrooms at the lodge. And also provide that information at the bathrooms. This is where we're going to brush our teeth every night. This is when we're going to shower. This is how we shower. If it's a teen cabin and they might want to shower more often, these are the times that you can also shower. Anyways, you can take that whole act of going to the bathroom and turn it into providing some of that key information in an experiential way, as opposed to just listing a set of things that are going to be happening later on, and talk about the schedule or incorporate other things into that. And it gives a physical movement break. So plan a bathroom break within your first hour as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like I wrote down cabin lore. What's the origin story of your cabin? I love that because you could just have fun with it each session, or even start it. And I even got the idea as a camp director, for any camp directors who might listen to the podcast, is I think I'm just going to buy like guest books and kind of style them up for each cabin. And then every kid signs a guest book for each cabin.
Oh,
And then you
that's
can
cool.
look at who's lived in every cabin. You literally take it out on check-in day. They sign in, each kid, close that book at the end of the day, bring it back, put it in the office. You just hold on to it every year, and the kids can come back and see, hey, who stayed in this cabin 10 years ago.
That's so fun.
Super easy, man. And then you can even put that origin story on the front page, right? Like, well, someone opens the book and it just says like, we of Eagle Cabin have been here since da 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 da, right? And
yeah, what a fun activity you could
high.
do. Like you could do with your cabin too at the end of the week to wrap up, that you get to write the story that goes in the guest book for the next cabin. And you could say like, this was our favorite part, or this is our pro tip, this is the best bunk, this is the best way to get to the bathroom from our like I think that that's such a neat idea that I wasn't expecting from this episode.
Yeah, just like the little letter. You know how sometimes camps will, or if some camps will do it, they write a letter to next year's staff, or
Yeah.
write a letter to themselves for next summer, and then they can open it up. Same thing, just for the kids. Why haven't we done it? Why? So
Why haven't we done it? That's right.
Ugh. But you know what? We get better every day. That's why we're here. We're first class. All right. Well, let's talk about things that don't work. Obviously, not having a guest book in your cabins is one of them. So we're all going to be hopping on that train pretty soon. But let's talk about what doesn't work. Robynne, kick us off and let us know some of the things that just are no-nos on the first day.
Yeah, I think one that we've already talked about a little bit is leading from in front as opposed to from within the group, especially within the first hour. People notice that, right? Kids are looking to you. We've already talked about that. But kids also match your actions and energy. And so when you're standing at the front and if you're leading a game or something like that, but you're not part of the game, then that gives permission for kids to also look at what you're doing and stand with you as well, as opposed to fully engaging and participating. You can role model with your actions by getting in and playing, by being one of the people involved, that this is what it looks like to be engaged and to be fun. And when those counselors are doing it, you bet that even the shy kid, or even the too cool for camp sort of kid on day one, they get to start to buy in there as well. And I think that my second one is giving kids too much choice. Oliver, I like what you said about giving them an opportunity to make a decision, and this is not that. So I want to clarify that giving them the opportunity to make a decision and have ownership and accountability over their experience is big thumbs up. Asking kids what they want to do because you're not intentional and don't have a plan is not an out for this first time. Saying, oh, but it can look nice, and that's the tricky thing about this one. Like, looks like you're being considering getting their opinion of, okay, like, what do you want to do right now? They don't know. It's the beginning of camp. It's day one. It's the first hour. They don't know what the options are, right? They don't know what it's okay to do. If it's their first time, I don't know. Can we go swimming right now? Oh, no, sorry, we can't do that. Okay, well, can we go on the zip line? No, sorry. And then you're telling the kid no, because they don't know, right? So, I think that under planning and using asking the kids what they want to do as kind of a cop out of having an intentional first hour, it may sound nice, but it may not actually work out so well. And that it's not going to be intentional, because who's the leader now? A 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Feels like a god, just the 7-year-old in charge of all his friends. I am the puppeteer.
Like the kindergartners on recess.
In recess, exactly.
All right. Matt, do you want to take it off?
Yeah, I can't stop thinking of the kindergartners. If you haven't seen the show Recess, that's my egg goal for this one, is go watch Recess on Netflix. It's amazing. Yes, I think don't make it up on the spot is my biggest thing. Like, that's what doesn't work. Trying to improvise. I often I think, Robynne and Oliver and I, we've been working in camp 10 plus years at this point. Like, if we need to improvise, we've kind of like earned our stripes in being able to improvise, but I still don't improvise like this first impression with the kids. I really think about it. I'll take a walk before camp starts and I'll think about that. I think about it with the staff all the time. When the staff come to camp, I definitely am thinking about what our first impression is going to be. So this isn't one thing you can improvise. Um, the other thing is, along with kind of the bathroom break, which is an amazing tip, is don't do so much that you're going to be late. Also, like don't over program that time. Like you shouldn't like be trying to keep them to like a rigid schedule. You should be intentional. Like these are the activities I want to do, but you want to let it kind of ebb and flow with how the kids are feeling about things. But don't be late. And it's not just because like your camp director or the program director doesn't want you to be late. I think it's, again, if we're thinking about setting the tone or the impression for the week, um, being late is not a tone that you want to have, because there are going to be times when you need to get to things or else kids are going to miss out, and you can explain that to them. This is why it's important, because we want to get food at the right temperature. We want to make sure everyone has a turn at the activities later. There's lots of reasons why being on time is important, but you again can do this without being a dictator of like the time. You can do the time honored traditions of giving them time warnings. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes with this activity and then we need to be out of the cabin, and giving them the information that they need. Like you're going to need your shoes, you're going to need your sandals, or you'll need your bathing suit, or make sure you pack your you're giving them these steps. Make sure you have sunscreen on if that's what they need for those times, and you're giving them time to do those things, so it doesn't feel like every transition is a rush, right? And if you don't treat that time with respect, then it's going to be a pain in the butt. You're going to be like, get out the door, let's get going. We're going to be late. We're going to be late. And that's not the impression you want to set of the cabin either. And make transitions and getting to and from places, make that something to look forward to. Make it fun and part of the action. We did a whole episode, I think it's called Terrific Transitions. I'll link to it in the show notes, about how to get from A to B really fun. That this is the perfect time to try that out. Make it part of your sequence of games and activities that, hey, we've ended the fun at the moment when the next thing at camp starts, so that you can just like pass off this like excited group of campers who are ready to listen to whoever is facilitating the next thing. Or if it's bedtime, you're facilitating that easy transition into your bedtime routine from this moment. But again, it's about intentionally thinking about the start and the very end of it as well.
No, yeah, all good times. I think the thing that you hit on really is that timing aspect that I think is so important. You you need to know that the things that are simple and easy to do are going to take longer, especially at the beginning of the week and this
Yeah.
this first hour, this first day, this first evening, right? The first time that kids need to go to showers is the craziest time at camp if you have a bathhouse, right? Even if you have a shower in the cabin, right? It's still like, okay, whose turn is it? Whose turn is it? Okay, okay, right? So know that your timings on even the simplest of things are going to take a lot longer in that first day. Even doing like a tour around camp, right? Just hitting the central spots. It's usually a first day thing. A lot of camps will have you do is like, this is where flagpole is. This is where the dining hall is. This is the waterfront. Let's go do our swim tests, right? There's a lot of things that are going to be going through that kid's mind the first time. A lot of new experiences that are going to go through. Understand, like add extra 5-10 minutes to whatever it might be, knowing that it's going to take a little bit of extra, where the kid is just going, wait, what do I need to have in my backpack right now? Do I need my bathing suit? No, we're going to dinner. I don't need my bathing suit. I can put that back, right? These simple things that they'll find out on day 2 or 3, or they'll be functioning at it at day 2 or 3. But for you, where you've prepared, you're ready for this, you need to understand that they're going to take a little bit more time, and then you need to be ready for the kids who are ready, right? Like, how do you keep that conversation going with those kids as you're waiting for that one other kid to kind of catch up? How do you
Mhm.
help that other kid catch up while keeping these kids entertained? So timing is a huge thing. For me, I think one of the big things is don't make promises you can't keep. It's a horrible thing. I think a lot of counselors might do in the first day, right? Is like, oh yeah, yeah, we're definitely gonna go on the giant swing. Yeah, we're gonna swim every day. We're gonna go horseback riding, and you're saying that to a 6-year-old, like, and we're probably not getting on a horse this week. A 6-year-old, like, depending on your camp, maybe your camp does that, but I know the camps that I've worked at, usually you're about 10 before you get on a horse. Um, So like understand that where you're allowed to make promises and where you should take a step back and go, yeah, I let me find out if we can do that first, right? Don't make those promises. I actively avoid making promises uh because I don't want to like hurt somebody by saying like, oh yeah, totally, we're gonna do that. I have no idea, but the nice thing is when you become an executive director, just for all the counselors listening, you get to make promises that other people can't. Like you can promise the cabin 10 Choco Tacos, if they pick up 1,000 pieces of trash on camp, and then all of a sudden camp is clean and it only costs you 10 Choco Tacos, right? Like great days as camp director.
Bada boom, bada bang.
Although I will say this live, if anybody does not know this, the Choco Taco is discontinued this year, so they have a higher value. So in fact, if I was to make the promise of giving Choco Tacos, I would not be able to fulfill that promise. So we're going to Chip Witches. That's going to be the new promised treat. It's always ice cream. It's the best. All right. So those are the things you just don't do. All right. Especially in that first day, that first hour or two with your kids. So, oh, I did have one actually. Last thing I want to say: still look presentable. Looking presentable on day one is not just for the parents when they check in. Look presentable throughout the whole day. Show that you have collected yourself. You can hold yourself presentable to your kids. If you start to fall apart by like 6 o'clock or something like that, or a few hours after the kids are there, then the kids are going to start to go, oh, they're just putting up a facade. You can become a natural human being with due course and time. But you do know you're putting on a face a little bit more on that first day to show your kids that you have confidence, you're competent, and that they can trust you. I think that's really important. So like don't like I don't know start like tying up your shirt around like your chest or whatever, or disheveling your hair. Or one big one for me is sunglasses. I'm a very big person on keeping your sunglasses up to make eye contact with people.
Huge.
Instead of covering it. Yeah, trust blockers and all this. Don't have the parents disappear and then all of a sudden sunglasses go down whenever you're talking to kids, right? Like obviously sun protection important. I'm not taking that away. But on that first day, like really limit the amount of time that you have your sunglasses over your eyes. And I'm saying that from Florida. All right. Great show, but it's not done yet because we all know there's one last thing that first class counselors always need, and that is their EGGLE, which is their ever growing, ever learning. It's a trick, a tip, a game, a song for counselors to use to become better every single day. And to show us how it's done, Matt, can you kick us off and tell us your EGGLE?
Oh, okay. I am doing this if you're listening to this after release, we're December 12th right now, and we're getting to camp interview season. And as interviews are happening more and more over Zoom these days, I think a lot of people would know, and if you don't know this, kind of one of the norms of interviews is that you want to make eye contact with your interviewer. You want to do your best to maintain that eye contact. And if you're watching the video right now, it should look like I'm making eye contact with you, the listeners out there, or the viewers out there. And the way that I'm doing that is I'm looking at my webcam. I'm looking right here, right at that front, so it makes it look like I'm making eye contact. And it doesn't mean that you can't have notes. We have show notes that you can probably see us glancing down to every once in a while. But when I'm really trying to make an impression or really make a point or connect with something emotionally, I'm looking at my webcam. And it is the weirdest and hardest thing ever because your guests, the people you're looking at, are actually on Zoom. But even if I arrange my Zoom screen, what I'm doing right now, and I'm looking at Robynne, I'm looking at Robynne right now, but you can tell that I'm not making eye contact. I'm a little bit lower. So that kind of impression, and even the placement, Oliver was reminding me that when we set up for the podcast, we all raise our laptops up a little bit so that the webcam is facing kind of coming down, or at least that you're at eye level of it. You don't want to be under you don't want to be over top of your webcam like if it was on your lap. You want to have your kind of your impression curated where you're at. And it doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. You don't have to like spend $1 million on your like backdrop and or do a virtual one. You can choose to do that or not, but it is important how you show up in that interview. And one of the easiest things is working on whatever your notes you need to do. Have them nearby, but try your best to look at your webcam. And a way that can help with that I had to do when I was first doing podcasts was I had a little sticky note that I had an arrow written on it, and I would stick it to the top of my laptop that would point an arrow at the webcam, so that I always remembered to look at the webcam rather than to look at my notes down there. I know someone out there. I'm not going to name names, but they have a thing that says "Look here, you idiot" on their sticky note pointing to the webcam, so that they never forget. Whatever works. Look at your webcam.
Yeah, I think we'll do a show about interviews soon enough, but I mean, nightmare interviews as a camp director now, you know, lounging on the couch in a loud area, going through an airport, right? All horror stories, but you definitely, if you're not looking, you can definitely tell
Yep,
your focus is maybe somewhere else, or it feels somewhere else at the very
for sure.
least.
Yep.
All right. Robin, kick us off. What do you have? What's your angle? How are we gonna improve?
Yeah, one of my favorite tips that I learned from an experienced counselor, shout out to Glares for this one, is to carry a garbage bag around with you in your backpack as a counselor. It can just be like a bag that you got at the grocery store or something like that. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I think that she uses a Ziploc bag, but just something that can collect garbage when you're walking around camp. Inevitably, when you work with children, especially the younger ones, they hand you things, right? You are the adult, and so you are the recipient of dandelions and flower chains, and also their leftover juice box once they're finished with it. So having a place wherever you are on site at camp to be able to put that garbage and have it in your backpack, but so that the juice box doesn't get sticky all inside your bag. So have that bag. And then as a bonus tip, you also have a garbage bag. So if you're walking around camp looking for a couple minutes to fill, then what are you doing? Oh, let's just help camp out. I have this garbage bag in my backpack, kids. Let's see how many piece of garbage we can pick up in the 3 minutes from now until when the dinner bell rings. Ready, go. And then you have a disposal unit for it. So carry around a garbage bag.
And it's a
Oh, I
waterproof
love.
vessel too, right? If it starts raining all of a sudden, you can just throw your crap in there, and it's at least waterproof for now,
Yeah.
if needed. Throw your crap, or if a kid forgot their rain jacket, you can throw it over top of them, as long as there's
That's
no
where I thought
garbage
you
in
were
it
going with
first.
that. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been like on a camp out and you need to bring a rain jacket, and all of a sudden you get a downpour of rain. You just take a trash bag, put it over your head, and you just sit there like a little turtle, just waiting for the rain to pass. Perfect.
But
Great.
but first class counselors don't use garbage bags as raincoats. Let's be very clear about
No.
that. Don't take your camp garbage bags. Get a raincoat from the medic station has an extra one for kids, and you get a good raincoat. You've heard us say that many times. Don't use a garbage bag as a raincoat, for God's sakes.
I'm
Especially
saying in
those
a pinch, in a
crazy
pinch.
drippings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Uh, no, actually, Robin, I have had this great idea. So, if anybody's a climber, go to the gyms and stuff. You have the little chalk bags, put
Mm.
a old like grocery bag inside of your chalk bag, and then it can actually zip shut. So, you don't have garbage spilling everywhere, but it can actually hang on the back side of your backpack as you walk around. It's small. You're not going to carry, big pieces of trash, but all those little bits, right? The little bits make a little world cleaner. um, you can use that as a nice little carrying case for your garbage bag, and then replace it as you go throughout the day. Um, but I do love that. My little eggle for today. I don't think I've said it on the show before, but it is honestly one of my favorite things that I have when it comes to camp decorating, and that is my balloon buddy. And my balloon buddy, he blows up balloons for me. He's a little air pump. You just put the little balloon on the top and go, fills the balloon within 2 seconds, tie it off, balloon is done. All right. I found mine in a clearance rack at Walmart, and he's my best friend. And if I'm ever decorating for events, he comes on out because I'm not great at decorating, but balloons are beautiful. And because of that, he will decorate at my wedding. He will be a groomsman for me. You will definitely see balloons made for my balloon buddy on my wedding day, no matter what my spouse decides. And also, the thing I love about it the most is there's no pricey helium. I don't know if you guys have gone out to try buying helium recently, but it's expensive. Even if it is fun, getting a cute little voice, it's still expensive. So my balloon buddy can make me a balloon arch in an hour or two, or a balloon tower in 30 minutes, or I could just fill up 100 balloons just for the fun of it. Or maybe we're having an event and I need to quickly fill up balloons, and I need a lot of balloons really quickly, and I don't have the lung capacity to do that any longer. So I have my balloon buddy, and he's there for me when I need him most.
That's my favorite angle that we've ever done. Oliver, your balloon buddy.
He is sitting on the shelf over here in my office. He's with me every day. I look over at him. I get the confidence. The other day, I had to fill up something that wasn't even a balloon, and he was there for me. He filled it up. It was a giant ball. And I was like, you know what? Maybe my balloon buddy can do this for me. And you know what he did? He did it. You know what? I need to name him. Just my balloon buddy.
Yoga balls, pool inflatables, air mattresses. Oh my goodness. And I just can't wait for the camp counselor out there that the director's like, hey, we got to decorate the dining hall. And the counselor's like, oh, I listened to this very niche podcast and I have this balloon buddy because the host recommended it. I can't, it is my favorite thing to think about of the impact of our podcast.
I'll look for it on Amazon. I'll make sure to have a link for anybody who goes to the show notes. And I think maybe $25, $25, and it will save you hours, stress. When you like blow 1,000 balloons, you're just so tired. Gone. No more problems. Balloon Buddy handles it.
Wow.
I am going to become an official spokesman for Balloon Buddy. That's what my goal is. I honestly, just right now, if anybody was watching, I looked over at the shelf, looked at my Balloon Buddy with as much affection as I have looked at significant partners in my life. I was like, oh, look at you over there, buddy.
This show is sponsored by Balloon Buddy. Gotta get that Balloon Buddy money.
All right. Well, if you're about to buy a Balloon Buddy, you can check out today's show notes. But you could also, for today's show, we'd be so grateful if you left us a review wherever you are listening to our podcast. Your rating and reviews not just help us know what you like or don't like about the show, but also boost our rankings and helps more people discover what we're doing here, which is hawking balloon buddies.
And you can find also our contact info to let us know if you had any feedback or anything like that. But Robynne, for those people who made it through Oliver's Balloon Buddy spiel, but want to know your contact info will be in there too. But Robynne, can you just give us a little bit if people want to reach out, if they have questions, if they want to know what the Cairn Family of Camps is all about, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't say this at the beginning of the show. My name is Robynne. I'm the camp director at the Cairn Family of Camps. And if you are interested in finding out more about Cairn, you can go to ilovecamp.org, or you can connect with me at Robynne, that's spelled Robynne, at ilovecamp.org if you have any questions or want to follow up.
Perfect. And don't forget that we mentioned a couple of things that are going to go in the show notes of this episode, along with our contact info. You can find those at gocamp.pro/FCC. And don't forget to check out the other great camp podcasts out there. If you are a more experienced camp staff or you're thinking about camp as a potential career, we have podcasts all about training staff, about what full-time camp pros think about, what day camp professionals think about, what private camp owners think about. It's a really cool glimpse into the camp world, whether or not you want to make a career of this wild and awesome job that we have as camp people.
Very true. And with that being said, thanks for listening, friends. And remember, camp is camp and camp's all good.